Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. For today's second video, this takes us to the end of the first week of September. We'll also have a look at the Beijing Climate Center the next 40 days. That will take us into October. We'll begin by seeing what's happening in the tropical Pacific and Atlantic Oceans in terms of storm and hurricane activities. So I'll go over that for you in a second, just to say that today's first video was the 5-day forecast. And it's going to be quite a settled 5 days coming up. High pressure is coming back, so things will get quite warm down in the south. Never truly settling down, though, probably within the 5-day forecast period time frame anyway, for Scotland and Northern Ireland. But for England and Wales, will be a lot of dry and quite warm weather around. So have a look at that and see what's going on. So we'll start off in the eastern North Pacific for today's video. We've got 3 areas of interest. So we've got this yellow X just here off Mexico. And that's just an area of thunderstorms, but conditions are conducive. The National Hurricane Center is saying conditions are conducive for that to develop into a storm in the next day or two. So by the weekend, that could well be up to tropical storm status. We've also got Miriam over here. This is tropical storm Miriam. Let's see what the latest is on Miriam. So this is the current position of tropical storm Miriam just here, and then tropical storm Miriam is forecast to move northwards in that sort of direction, and by the end of the weekend should be down to a post-tropical depression. Looks like the islands of Hawaii will miss this one. Of course, they had a battering from Lane over the weekend, but it looks like they're going to miss Miriam, so she's just going to stay out in the middle of the sea by the look of it. And then also we've got Norman. This is tropical storm Norman just here, and Norman is quite a major area of low pressure and is forecast to become even more so. So this is the current position of tropical storm Norman right now. Within the next few hours, Norman is forecast to reach hurricane status. And later tomorrow, so sort of tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, Norman is forecast to become a major hurricane. That means Norman will be going to Category 3 or above hurricane status. Then this major hurricane Norman is forecast to continue through into the weekend. Doesn't look like Norman is going to hit any populated areas up to Monday. So by midday on Monday, long way out of course, and the National Hurricane Center is taking Norman back to hurricane status from major hurricane status. So that would be Category 1 or Category 2. And it doesn't look like Norman is going near any populated areas up to Monday, but obviously they'll be keeping a very close eye on what Norman's going to be doing in the next few days at the National Hurricane Center. And of course it's a very active season indeed, but we're having in the northeastern Pacific, so major hurricane season is taking place there, and more storms can be expected, I would have thought, over the next few weeks. On the other hand, in the Atlantic, things have been very, very quiet indeed. There's been a very quiet start to the Atlantic hurricane season. This is the latest in terms of Atlantic tropical cyclones and disturbances. Nothing really happening in the ocean, but we have got this area of thunderstorms, this area of low pressure just here off North Africa, off the coast of sort of North and West Africa. So what they are saying at the National Hurricane Center is that we've got a chance of a cyclone formation there within the next 48 hours. A low pressure area is forecast to form between the coast of Africa and the Cabo Verde Islands in association with a tropical wave that is expected to move off the west coast of Africa late Thursday or early Friday. Additional development is anticipated, and a tropical depression could form over the weekend while the system moves west-northwest near the Cabo Verde Islands. Interesting, those islands should monitor the progress of this system. So at the moment, it's only a very low risk that this is going to develop into a cyclone in the next 48 hours. But by the weekend, this might develop into a storm. I believe if this gets named, it would be Tropical Storm Florence. So that's likely to be our next point of interest within the Atlantic. So that's how things are developing in the tropics at the moment. Let's come back to the weather closer to home. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. We're looking at Blackburn in the north of England today. So we're starting off pretty cool, actually. We're going to have a couple of cooler days with the upper air temperatures. This will be most evident at night with some really quite cold nights coming up. However, over the weekend, we've got a rise in the temperature taking place. So it's going to get much warmer over the weekend, especially so down in the south-southeast with temperatures potentially reaching the mid-20s Celsius. And then we're going through this first week of September into the second week of September, this period just here. And the GFS ensembles are generally trending warmer than average, although perhaps not quite as warm as they was yesterday. So the suggestion yesterday was that we might be seeing temperatures up to the upper 20s, possibly at the outside, reaching 30 degrees Celsius in the south-southeast. I think the risk of that, those very high temperatures diminishing a bit today. But even so, it's going to be warm to very warm over the weekend, and that's going to last into the early part of next week down in the south. The north will probably cool down a little bit through weekend into the early part of next week, particularly the early part of next week. As far as precipitation is concerned, a lot of dry weather coming up between now and the weekend. Through this first week of September into the second week of September, may be signs that the precipitation spikes are coming back. That's a very, very long way off, so I wouldn't necessarily take that too seriously. It's certainly within the next week to 10 days, it does look as though we're going to have a lot of dry and fairly warmish weather, particularly in the south. Temperature anomalies for the next week, from the 29th of August to the 6th of September, are coming out a little bit warmer than average. Not a huge deviation, but certainly on the warmer than average side. And still very dry. Precipitation anomalies from the 29th of August to the 6th of September are coming out substantially drier than average through all parts of the UK and all parts of Ireland as well. So this is how the GFS is looking for Saturday, with high pressure ridging from the Azores through Europe and going in towards Scandinavia as well. That high pressure will be intensifying as we get through to Sunday, bringing very warm air from France and central parts of Europe to particularly southern and east parts of England and Wales. Notice always a little bit more unsettled, a little bit more influence from the Atlantic to west of Scotland to Northern Ireland as well. That's through to Monday, and again, high pressure is dominating the weather. High pressure in the Atlantic, high pressure over Scandinavia, it's ridging through the UK. This is very similar to the weather patterns that we had through most of the summer, particularly June and July, and delivered all of that very hot weather that we had through the early and middle part of summer 2018. That's Tuesday, and high pressure is still in control, but what's happening on Tuesday is that a weak cold front, or an occluded front, is kind of moving south into this high pressure. It won't do very much. It will probably only produce a band of cloud. But behind it, the air will be somewhat cooler and fresher. So as we go through into the middle part of next week, but high temperatures that we start off with kind of diminish a little bit. And we return to sort of low 20 Celsius, I would have thought, through the middle of next week. And probably with some cooler nights coming up as well. But still, high pressure is dominating the weather. Now, notice this area of low pressure down here in the extreme left-hand corner of the chart as you're looking at. That area of low pressure just there. That is a tropical development, and that could well be the GFS developing the area of thunderstorms that we just saw that is on that west coast of Africa at the moment, and the National Hurricane Centre is saying that might become a tropical storm by the weekend. That's the GFS developing that further, so that potentially is going to be named Storm Florence. Certainly a tropical disturbance out there to the very far southwest of the chart, or to the far left of the chart as you're looking at it, by the time you get through to the middle of next week. Now we run through into the second half of next week, and you'll see that high pressure remains dominant, but this particular GFS run is taking this high pressure quite a long way north, actually. It's taking it up towards Scandinavia and towards Iceland, and so that does start to pull down cooler air from the northeast. So this particular GFS run is not particularly warm for next week. It starts off pretty warm in the southeast, but it's cooling things down with a bit of a chilly east or northeasterly wind getting up there by day 10, Saturday the 8th of September. Again, there's that tropical disturbance in the extreme corner, left-hand corner of the chart as you're looking at it. Into the sort of the extended time frame, and we look like this with the GFS. So we go up to Monday 10th of September. High pressure continues to be dominating over Scandinavia. Low pressure is increasingly gathering in the Atlantic. And then it's going to a very extended range. This storm, or what will by this point probably be post-tropical storm, starts to get caught up in the jet stream. So it begins to move out into the central part of the Atlantic, and would you believe it, by the time you get through to the very end of the GFS run, which is Friday the 14th of September, what was probably at least tropical storm, maybe Hurricane Florence, is hitting the UK as quite a deep area of low pressure. So that would really start to shake things up. But do bear in mind that's 384 hours away. It's a couple of weeks, over a couple of weeks, Friday 14th of September. And that, what was formerly Tropical Storm or Hurricane Florence, hasn't even formed yet. It's just an area of thunderstorms off the west coast or on the west coast of Africa at the moment. So take that with a pinch of salt, but it certainly is interesting how the GFS is handling that intense area of low pressure. This is the ECMWF for Saturday and into Sunday. We find high pressure is in control of the weather. And then on Monday, there's the front that's coming down into that area of high pressure. So it's going to be a very, very weak feature. But ahead of it, the air is quite hot, being pulled up from France, or very warm. Behind it, the air is cooler, coming in from the North Atlantic. So as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday, still with high pressure dominating, but what's happened there is that the cooler air has moved down from the northwest. So after a very warm or perhaps locally hot start to next week in the south on Monday, temperatures cool down a little bit, going back to below 20 Celsius with some cooler and fresher nights as well. But it is high pressure all the way, so we're going to the extended range, and this area of high pressure is dominating, moving increasingly towards Scandinavia. There's the low pressure there. That could well be Tropical Storm or Hurricane Florence. So the ECM has that in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean as well by day 10, similar to where the GFS is placed in that area of low pressure. And that's, as I say, it is chart for day 10. The high pressures over Scandinavia. It's possible that if we could run on another day or two, we will find things turning more unsettled, because we've got low pressure out there, if we ignore what's going on just there, because we don't know where that tropical storm is going to go. But we've got low pressure out here. It looks like pressure is weakening to our south as well. So it looks like we've got a bit of a two-pronged attack, one from the west and potentially one from the south as well, which might turn things a bit more unsettled if we could roll on another day or two with the ECM, which unfortunately we can't. And then finally, this is the GEM. So again, for Saturday and Sunday, high pressure could be dominating weather, bringing lots of dry and warm weather to the south. Always a little bit cloudy, a little bit more showery to the very far north and northwest of Scotland. That's Monday, when again we're pulling in very warm to hot air into the south, but this cooler air is trying to get down from the Atlantic, and there's a cold front through there, which will be a very weak feature as it's running in to high pressure. By the time we get through to middle of next week, it's all become much more simple. The high pressure just ridging through the country, but with a slightly cooler and fresher air mass under that high pressure, temperatures will return to below 20 Celsius. Low humidity, be a very nice spell of weather actually through the middle of next week. I would have thought plenty of sunshine, pleasantly warm, not overly warm though. And fairly low humidity as well. Very nice conditions with some refreshingly cool nights also. Into the second half of next week, this ridge is maintained. So again, we're going up towards day 10, and the high pressure is dominating the weather really. It centres just out to west of us, but it's exerting enough influence to be keeping any rain-bearing weather systems away to the very far north and west of Scotland. So overall it's dry, fine and warm up to day 10. No sign of that tropical disturbance in the extreme left-hand corner of the chart as you're looking at it, as we saw with the GFS and the ECM. So the GM hasn't yet sort of developed, I don't think. That tropical storm really has. If it has, it hasn't moved it into the northern Atlantic. So we'll have to keep an eye on what goes on there. Finally, we'll just have a look at the charts from the Beijing Climate Center for the next 40 days. These are the 500 millibar heights. Broke it down into 10-day periods. The first 10-day period will take us from the 1st through to the 10th of September, with above average heights extending from the Atlantic and into the UK and up to Scandinavia as well. In fact, if we go further back, it extends into Russia and it goes off into Siberia as well. So that is a very large area of high pressure, to say the least. It's covering tens of thousands of miles, and it also extends back onto the Atlantic coast of Canada, interestingly as well. So a really big ridge there from Canada through to Siberia, partly covering the UK also. Excuse me. Then we've got below average heights with jet stream up to our north, so the jet stream is up there. It means there's going to be a lot of settled weather around for the first 10 days of September. And then the second 10-day period, which takes us from the 11th through to the 20th of September, looks like that. Above average heights close to the UK still, and also out in the middle of the Atlantic. Little bit of a weakness in that area of above average heights is allowing the jet stream to get slightly closer to us, so it might be a little bit more showery in that period, but essentially high pressure is still dominating weather over and to the east of the UK. That's the final 10-day period of September. Takes us from the 21st through to the 30th of September with, again, above average heights, but they're more to the south-southwest of us this time. Below average heights are developing up to the north. Looks like the jet stream's coming southwards as well. So it's not overly unsettled, but it certainly is turning things a little bit more unsettled there as we're going into the final 10 days of September, which would be particularly evident for northern Britain. Down in the south, we're still quite close to that ridge, but with time, it looks like through September, this high pressure is being eroded, and the Atlantic westerlies are sort of returning. And then we go through to the final 10-day period, which takes us through the first 10 days of October. So we go from the 1st to the 10th of October, with again below average heights to the north, above average heights putting out into the middle of the Atlantic. Also moving over towards central and east parts of Europe over there. Looks like the jet stream is properly coming south now. So I expect that will be turning a lot more unsettled as we get through to the start of October. Probably it begins in the final 10 days of September, but particularly by the time you get through to the start of October, I think that is turning things a lot more unsettled, and you probably expect showers and longer spells of rain, and a much more autumnal type setup beginning to develop. Most evident in the north, but even in the south, I expect that will be a lot more unsettled. Just to say, but if you're enjoying the content at Gaz Weathers, please consider becoming a patron for Gaz Weathers. So this is Gaz Weathers' Patreon page. You can come here and sign up for a Patreon account. And then if you'd like to give us a monthly donation to help fund the videos and the website and keep the channel and the website completely free of charge, then that's how you do it. You just sign up for a Patreon account, and you can become a patron for Gaz Weathers and pledge an ongoing monthly donation. And we've got 26 patrons so far. A big thank you to all of the patrons for Gaz Weathers. Alternatively, if you would prefer to just give a one-off donation, you have a PayPal account, then you can do it through the Gaz Weathers PayPal page. And this is Gaz Weathers' PayPal page, so you just come to this page, and I've got the links to both these websites and pages on the description at YouTube, and also on all pages at Gaz Weathers. So you just simply come here, sign into your PayPal account, and then you can pledge a one-off monthly donation. It's helping to fund the website and to keep all of the content completely free of charge. So also helping to fund gazweathers.com as well, which of course does take money to keep the website online. There's various costs that are incurred with the website. we have to pay for the domain name, we have to pay our ongoing subscription to the web host. We have to pay as well for the GDPR solution that we've just had to implement over the past few months, and also the comment box at GavsWebViz, we have to pay for that. So there are ongoing costs that are associated with the website, and we just ask that if you can afford to give us a donation and you enjoy what we do at GavsWebViz, you enjoy the content we deliver, then please consider either becoming a patron or giving us a one-off donation. You'll get a shout out in the video as long as you want one. If you want to remain anonymous, it's perfectly fine. Just leave a little note with your donation, say you'd rather not get a mention. But otherwise, you'll get a mention in the video and a thank you for your contribution. So a big thank you to all of the patrons and all of the donors for GavsWebViz. I think that just about covers everything for today. So tomorrow we'll be back with your video updates as always. But 21 minutes, that's all for now. And thanks for watching.